Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame community. My name is Pierre, and I'm here as always to help you win at Fantasy Baseball with my waiver wire pickups, this time heading into week 19 of the 2022 Fantasy Baseball season. All right, so let's start with some middle infielders that I think will help. Kind of a thin position here. Start with Segura of the Philadelphia Phillies. He is officially back. Look, he was on fire to start the season, and then an injury cut it short. He was on the 60-day IL, so you haven't heard much from him, but now he's got a couple of games under his belt. And look, the first 2 games back looked a little rusty. He went hitless, and then the next day he went 3 for 4, stole a base, took a day off, and then home run just tonight as I'm talking about him. So it's safe to say he's back into shape. This is a guy who has some pop, some speed. He can hit for average. He can actually help you in all roto categories, and he's going to be locked into everyday playing time. Qualifies typically at shortstop and second base in fantasy leagues. So look, Segura is somebody who really should be owned in almost all 12 plus team leagues. If he's out there still because somebody didn't stash him, go ahead and see if he's available and pick him up now. He really could be in your starting lineup starting today. Now here's another guy who is just about to come off of his rehab stint in Jacksonville, and that is Berti of the Miami Marlins. This is a player who somehow is still leading the majors in stolen bases with 28, even though he hasn't played since July 14th. Almost a month he's missed, and he's still the leader. All right, so if you need speed, there's really nowhere else to turn to. You go with Berti. Miami, always a run-happy team under Don Mattingly. At this point, pretty obvious, not contending, playing for next year. They're going to let him loose. He's going to have the green light as he usually does. And this is a player who also qualifies at multiple positions. He can play the middle infield, also outfield for you. He might also qualify at third base. So that is extremely helpful. He's kind of this utility guy. And you know what? He was actually not hitting too poorly either. It's not just the speed. He was hitting 271. The counting stats might not be overly impressive. Of course, you're not getting any power with him, unlike with Segura. But look, you need steals. You go with Berti. There's a good chance that he's going to get you a handful before the season's over. Now, if you're really desperate for speed and you're really not worried about anything else, well, maybe Nicky Lopez. Look, this is a guy that has a great glove. The bat, not so much. Look, he was hot for a spell last year. This year, he just hasn't really gotten it going ever, hitting 247 on the year. And of course, there's absolutely no power, and I mean no power to speak of. And he's on a bad Royals team. But you need speed. He can do that. And he hasn't really piled up a lot of stolen bases this year, but just since August 1st, he's got 4 stolen bases. He's starting to pick it up again. This is a team also, sellers at the deadline, big sellers. Royals, you know what? Not much to play for at this point. They might let Lopez loose on the base pass as well. So again, this is only a recommendation for roto leagues where you need to make up a deficit in steals. But Lopez, if he starts to turn on, he kind of did that in the second half previously. Maybe he'll be a little bit more valuable in terms of getting on base and maybe scoring once in a while too. Continuing our trend of players on bad teams, which is typically what's available on the waiver wire at this point of the season. Well, here's a guy I kind of wish I had mentioned earlier. That's Seth Brown of the Oakland A's. Somebody who's given you some power. He's got 17 home runs, 48 RBIs on the season, and surprisingly 8 steals too. And he's really picked it up lately. So he's been kind of quietly effective, not really standing out, but he's been a fixture in that lineup. And again, the A's now at this point, really just kind of playing for next year. Well, Seth Brown, I guess he's playing looser because just in the last 10 days, he's got 5 home runs going on a mini power binge. We know he's got the power. His Statcast numbers are actually really good in terms of barrel rate and hard hit rate. So we know that it's legit. I wish you could say he would drive in more runs if he had some batters in front of him. But hey, the A's weren't super sellers at the deadline. They still have Ramon Laureano and a couple of quality players there. And their offense hasn't been, it has been bad. But Seth Brown has been pretty good, and he's sitting in the middle of that lineup. So he can give you some power. If you're looking for home runs off the waiver wire, he looks like your best option. Unless you want to go with a guy named Franmil Reyes. You probably know him because he was drafted in almost every fantasy league, and he was dropped in a lot of them because, man, he has just struggled. Of course, he was hurt early on. After struggling, came back, looked like he might be his old self, but never really got it going. Don't know if it's health related or what, but Cleveland, they had enough. They actually released him the other day, and he caught on with the Cubs. They claimed him right away. Well, here's the thing. The Cubs picked him up, and they immediately put him 5th in the lineup, and then they DFA'd Frank Schwindel, another fantasy bust this year. Honestly, hot end of last year, Schwindel never really got it going. They're done with him, right? He's gone. So Reyes has taken the place of Schwindel. He's going to be their, I guess, everyday DH going forward. It looks like they have plans to see what they can do with him. We know Reyes has massive power. It's in there. This has just been a bad season. Will the change of scenery, do something for him, kickstart him? It's possible, right? We don't know. Like the Cubs, also a team that are just kind of hanging on, but they still have their pieces in place. They didn't trade guys like Wilson Contreras or Ian Happ, so this is not a terrible lineup. If Reyes has motivation to show he still belongs in the majors, which he should have, you know what? This could be a really sneaky source of power off the waivers. So Franmil Reyes, he's still out there in about 2/3 of fantasy leagues, so there's a good chance you could pick him up and see what you got with him. And last but not least, another utility guy here you can plug in a lot of places. That would be second base, third base, shortstop, outfield, and that is Luis Rengifo of the Los Angeles Angels. You probably don't want much to do with the Angels these days. I mean, talk about you just falling apart. It's so sad how much talent on a team that can finish this badly. Well, look, they're going to try to cobble something together the rest of the season if they can. Right now, Rengifo is batting third on an everyday basis, which says something about the state of this Angels lineup these days. But it also says, look, he's got a chance to drive in some runs, to score some runs. Not a huge power guy, but this is somebody who knows how to get on base, and he's done just that. He's actually been really impressive as far as average, hitting over 300 for the past month. And out of the past 32 games he's played, he's only gone hitless 4 times. Almost every night he's given you at least 1, if not 2 base hits. So you could use that for average. Look, I'm not going to promise you that he's a 5 category contributor because he's probably not. But look, batting average is really hard to catch up on at this point of the season. You have a guy you can kind of count on to hit 300 for the next month or two. That is definitely valuable, and you can slot him in at multiple places. So Rengifo is someone you should definitely be interested in. All right, those are my picks for hitter waiver wire options heading into week 19. Hopefully this helps you. Also check out the pitcher edition of this on this very channel. Hit subscribe for all the latest fantasy news, updates, and advice all year long.